All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is our session entitled Using Community-Based Learning to Increase Equity in STEM Courses. And my name is Taryn Oakley. I use she or they pronouns, and I work at Portland Community College in Portland, Oregon, where I teach environmental science and also help to coordinate our community-based learning program.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ari Petrides. I am a faculty at Portland Community College, and I'm also a faculty coordinator. I use the pronouns he, him, and elle. So my full name is Aristides Petrides, and that's the email. So at the end of the presentation, Taryn and we're going to share our emails, and I just keep hearing at least once every 3 months. I cannot find you, and it's that I go by Ari, but my full name is Aristides. Thank you very much for being in this presentation.
Great. Thanks, Ari. And I'm going to put a link in the chat right now that I can get in it. There you go. And this is our resource list for a copy of the slides we're showing you, some other resources, and we'll just give it to you now in case anyone prefers to follow along with their own version of the slides. Feel free to open the resource list and you can see it all linked in there. All right. So I want to start today with a land acknowledgement. And for this land acknowledgement, we're going to showcase an art exhibit with one of our community partners called the Five Oaks Museum. So this museum is located on PCC, Portland Community College, one of our campuses, the Rock Creek campus. And they currently have an online exhibit entitled This is Kalapuyan Land. And the exhibit curator, Steph Littlebird Fogel, says, "This is Kalapuyan Land acts as both a museum exhibition title and a land acknowledgement. It's also a declaration of perpetual stewardship by the Kalapuyan people. We have always been here. We will always be here." So I'm going to put a link in the chat, and I invite you to save this link. And if you have time today after our session to spend some time browsing the exhibit, and you can learn more about the Kalapuyan people.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
There we go.
Cool. So great. So today's, what to expect from today's presentation. We're going to start off with giving you a quick survey so we can see what kind of community engagement is happening on your campus. Then we're going to tell you a little bit about what community-based learning is, and we'll call community-based learning CBL for a lot of this presentation. So those two things are synonymous. We'll have a discussion about some equity issues that could come up in our STEM courses. We'll talk about how you can use CBL to promote equity in STEM courses. We'll give you some examples of STEM CBL projects we've used at our campus. We'll have a discussion about how to incorporate CBL into STEM classes, and then we will have time for questions and an invitation to connect with us at the end. And if you all feel like it, if you could put into the chat, give us a quick introduction, who you are, what college you're from, and what your role is, that would be great. And Ari, do you think we should do the survey before we talk about what CBL is?
Maybe we can do it after so that they can see our interpretation of CBL and how we take it from the college.
Okay, great. All right.
So I just want to give a quick intro of how we apply CBL at PCC, or what we call CBL at PCC. So service learning or community engagement or civic engagement can take different perspectives, right? So the goal is to incorporate community partner needs with course content, right? So students get to apply course content and help a community partner organization. And this can take many different phases. It can be a term project. It can be for the entire course content. It can be over different terms. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to show a couple of examples of how we have been applying CBL at PCC. So now, as Taryn was saying, we would like to share a quick form to ask you, what do you call CBL at your college or institution? And if you have applied CBL. So please, the form is already in the chat. If you could please go to that link and just answer these few questions.
And we're not sharing this anywhere besides right now. We just want to get a feel for who's in the room and what your colleges look like.
Right. I just want to say that the goal of CBL is to connect the students that with service organizations. They are aware of, they understand their community a little bit better. They understand their community needs, and they developed social responsibility. They increase awareness. They develop soft skills such as leadership. They connect with one another. They have problem solving, develop critical thinking skills, and it's a life learning transformation for the life of our students.
All right, I'm looking at the survey right now. I wonder if it's because I'm sharing it outside of my campus. Let's see, settings.
All right, let me see if I can share it. Do you have responses, Darren?
No, someone
go to
said
the settings. Go to the settings, I think.
see if that one works. Yeah, it doesn't say anything. There's nothing on my end that would be making it not work that I can see.
Click on settings at the top, because I'm still getting the same you need permission message.
So Ari, can you try? Oh yeah, you're in the responses, I think.
Let me see. Yep.
Go to where it says settings next to responses.
Uh-huh.
And then let's see. Shoot. No,
Well,
it's under, let me double check. I'll give you the instructions in the chat.
All right. What about if we leave the form and we can discuss a little bit better, a little bit later on how do you call CBL at your organization and how have you applied it?
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Let's while we try to fix this form issue, we would like to show you this video that was developed as a part of a CBL component from another faculty called Greg Gressner in his class of Engineering 101. So I'm gonna play this video for you all.
Hello, my name is Ariana Abraham. I am 20 years old and I'm from the Marshall Islands. Located 7 degrees north of the equator lies the flat coral islands that make up the Marshall Islands. Here lives the kindest people with the warmest hearts, where you can find nothing but great hospitality among them. Here lives the stories and legends of Mejenguar and other demons, wronged husbands, disobedient children, and other tales that keep the importance of Marshallese customs and traditions alive. In the Marshall Islands, everyone is family. And although the descriptions of my home may sound exciting, there is much more that we need to improve on. In a country where issues highlight the abundance of amputated legs, breakfast is composed of underpriced but overly consumed chips, where victims live under the same roof as their perpetrators, where saggy diapers swim across the lazy lagoon, where everything from businesses to educational institutions come with a limit, there exists a vast space of improvement needed. The Marshall Islands is an independent country. However, we have a compact with the United States that allows us Marshallese citizens to travel to the U.S. without a visa and to work and live freely in the U.S. And that's why I am here in the U.S. today. I graduated high school in 2018 and I moved to Oregon in 2019 to pursue higher education because the education quality in the Marshall Islands is limited. I have always found math problems to be entertaining and fun, and I also really enjoy art, so I thought engineering could be a potential major that I want to study. I moved to Oregon knowing that I wanted a bachelor's in environmental engineering. And to be honest, I am a little surprised that I have not switched majors considering the workload of an engineer major. Other than that, I decided to major in engineering because I know an engineering bachelor's can help the Marshall Islands by a whole lot. I really want to give back to my home country, and I hope to serve and give back to my community with my degree by creating and inventing ways to adapt or mitigate from climate change. With community projects, I can invent ways to manage waste and manage pollution. I can come up with projects to protect our air, soil, coral reefs, the ocean, and the unique species that we have within our ocean. Not only will this be better for our environment, but it will bring the Marshallese community together as a team to learn more about climate change. I believe that I can offer a lot and even create more opportunities for the youth in the Marshall Islands so that they too can expand their knowledge and interest in environmental activities and maybe even engineering. I am only a sophomore, therefore I have yet to experience the grueling work and sacrifices that come along with pursuing an engineering bachelor's. And I know I still have a long way to go. A great challenge that I still try to overcome is living in Oregon without my family. Back home, we only have 2 seasons, rainy and sunny. Until today, it is still difficult to get used to the cold weather. I often get homesick, but the reminder of home actually motivates me to work harder for my engineering bachelor's. Another obstacle that I have overcome was simply expressing my interest in engineering. The Marshall Islands is a very cultural and traditional society, so we are not used to women who pursue engineering bachelors, let alone an educational career. There is actually only one Marshallese woman who has an engineer bachelor's, and she just received her engineering master's a few months ago. And I cannot stress that we need more women in the engineering field and also engineers who focus on climate change. And in honor of the Engineers Creed as adopted by the National Society of Professional Engineers, I see myself fulfilling the Engineers Creed by dedicating my professional knowledge and skill to the people of the Marshall Islands. I can also commit to working with other engineers around the globe to discuss the important issues of climate change, a serious and first-hand threat to the Marshall Islands and its neighboring islands. Thank you very much for listening to my
All right, I'm gonna stop.
story and watching my video. I hope you guys like it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching that video. We just want to stress that so we are facing global challenges that requires the participation from all, and as we increase diversity in STEM, we produce better science. Our chances to face these challenges. Democracy improves as gets stronger with the quality of education, and also the 4th point is that the growing demand of current labor market in the U.S. for STEM. So we have global challenges. We need better science. As we increase diversity, we produce better science. And I hope that with today's presentations, you can see that we can improve diversity in STEM by incorporating a CDL component into your courses. So let me go to the next slide and just show you that there has been the federal government has a couple of projects to increase equity in STEM, right? And these programs, they have increased diversity, but then when we look at an intersectional approach of how diversity has improved, we do not see the ratios that we would like to see. So for example, we see that that females in STEM has increased, but then when you look at the intersectionality, females from minority communities have not increased at the same proportion as white females. Another issue that we would like to stress is that the pandemic didn't affect all equally. So the pandemic affect some communities more than others. So low-income families did not have the resources to face the pandemic equally, right? You didn't have they were sharing computers, they were sharing bandwidth of the internet. And then after the pandemic, we have a big setback on the diversity in the pandemics. This has been shown over multiple platforms, right? If you have the interest, just Google the New York Times effects of pandemics in mathematics and the effects of pandemics in STEM, and you will see these amazing graphs where they show the decrease in diversity after the pandemic. All right. So we would like to open some discussions here. We would like to open the breakout room so that we can have some discussion of why do you see inequities in STEM? Why do you think these inequities exist? And what have we done or what have you what have you already tried, or could you try to increase equity in STEM?
So before we do this though, two things. First, I think that Google's survey is working. So if you feel like filling that out, we could also pause right now and just let folks type in the chat or say out loud, if you have some kind of a program similar to CBL, what we want to recognize is that our PCC calls community engagement CBL, or community-based learning, but we know other campuses call it different things. It might be called service learning. It might be called community engagement. And we want to recognize that all these things are very similar with a lot of overlap. And so as we're talking about what we call community-based learning, your college might call it something slightly different, but we're on the same path when we're talking about this. Let me see quickly if anyone put any responses to the survey. Let's see. We only have one. So do folks want to just type in the chat, like say yes or no if you have some kind of program at your college similar to community-based learning, and if yes, what that's called. And that will give us a good starting point. And then while that's happening, before we go into breakout groups, I would love to give you a couple of quick examples of how I see equity issues in my environmental science classes, because I think that will help you all get the juices flowing for your brainstorm. So I'll give you two examples. The first is that I see students come into my intro level classes with a whole lot of different amounts of previous knowledge. So probably depending on where they went to high school or what kind of science resources they had access to. And so what I've tried to do is I've included more and more scaffolding in my classes, where if students already know the content, they can skip through it or use it as a review. And if they don't know it, then they can be presented with that information so that all the students end up with that baseline amount of knowledge. Another example is access to equipment. So I take my students outside a lot. We're in Portland. If you're familiar with the weather here, which I know a few of you are, it rains a lot during the winter. So over the years, I noticed, even though I was telling my students, like, come dressed for the weather, many of them were showing up without rain jackets. And after several years of this, I realized it was because many of them didn't have rain jackets or didn't have access to them. And so I know it's a lot harder to be present and engaged in a class if you're freezing cold and soaking wet. So I ended up getting some grant funding to get a set of rain jackets and a whole bunch of different sizes that students can borrow for trips into the field. And so it's really helped boost equity in that way. Okay, so in just a minute, we're going to send you into breakout groups. I'm going to give you another link. Hopefully this one will work. And this is to a Jamboard. And if you haven't used a Jamboard, it's a great place for you all we're just going to add some sticky notes to it. And that way we can kind of have some ideas of what folks are talking about, and we can use it later to have more discussions. So once you get into the breakout groups, the questions are actually on the first Jamboard. To access the Jamboard sticky note, oh nice, Ari's going to show you. There's some icons on the left side that you can use, and the one towards the middle says sticky note, and then you can just type a little note into there and save it. So right now we're going to be on page 1 of the Jamboard, adding any notes to it. Yeah, and we hope you all have some great conversations. Does anyone have questions before we send you off? All right, you'll be in there for 5 minutes. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for opening the breakout rooms.
Are the breakout rooms open?
Hello, Kilaine, are you opening the breakout rooms? Oh, there we go. I think the breakout rooms are open now. So
Okay, thank you.
You will click join.
Ari, should we jump in breakout groups or should we let folks talk?
Let me see. I think I can see if they are talking or not in the breakout rooms.
Okay, cool.
And we have Catherine in room 3.
Oh, I'm gonna move.
Oh, perfect.
I was alone in room 4.
Oh, I just moved you into a different room.
Sorry, Gilbert, that was my fault. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay.
So you should have an invitation to join room 3 now. Oh, perfect. All right. We have 2 people for room 1 and 2 in
Hi,
room 2.
everyone. I just wanted to let you know you have 10 minutes in the room, not 20. So please just be mindful of that. And we will see you back in about 10 minutes. Well, about 8 minutes now. They have a new thing, Ari. Did you see this amazing thing? It lets you broadcast your voice to the rooms.
I haven't tried that yet, but I did see it. I was a little nervous.
It's the new update. Ah,
That's cool.
yeah, I'll see how it worked. We can all try it.
But what do you think, Taryn? Should we go to the breakout rooms or should we just wait a little?
It's weird. I'm not able to see if people are talking or not. That's really weird.
Let's see. I thought
Okay.
Usually I see the
Yeah.
little icons. I'm gonna join room 1 and just see if anyone's talking. They must be talking.
I hope so.
I'm sure they are, yeah. But let me check on them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at the end we can talk about the questions that we were asking. Nobody's writing on the Jamboard though.
Yeah, I see a couple in there.
I see a couple of people in the Jamboard, but nobody. Oh, they were on top of each other. Oh. Ghislaine, did you close the breakout rooms? Oh, there we go.
Hello and welcome back.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you had a good conversation in your breakout room. We would like everybody to now share as a group what you all discussed in the breakout rooms. To get started, so when we were first developing this presentation, Taryn and I, Taryn asked, maybe we should ask this question, and I was like, well, I don't know if I have done anything to increase equity in STEMs, particularly. But then, as we started to do conversation, we start to saw that we start to talk about, well, what are the issues with equity in STEM, right? Is the lack of role models, is the lack of seeing lack to see the applicability of STEM in your communities, lack of resources, right? So I see here in the Jamboard that we have continually some issues adherence to K-12 system, expose them to STEM prior to college. I don't know, whoever wrote this, can you please expand, because this is certainly an issue. An issue with lack of diversity in STEM is that individuals from minority communities are not exposed early enough to the STEM fields. Does somebody would like to share about why they wrote this? Or what are they doing?
Gilbert had excellent statistics at hand.
Yeah, Catherine probably wrote that down based on what I said about our situation at the Bakersfield College.
Yes.
We enroll about 700 to 800 first-time STEM majors each year, and we're able to send out about 200 and about 150 after 2.5, 3 years. Probably you guys see similar statistics at your own colleges. And about 50% of those students are STEM majors. They are members of our MESA program, because through our MESA program, we are able to give them some individualized support and the type of support that students from underrepresented groups actually need. So now we also see a lot of equities in our success outcomes, with about 85% of Asian students completing and succeeding in our Gateway STEM courses, about 80% of white students succeeding, about 70% of Hispanics, and a little bit under 60% of Black students succeed in our Gateway STEM courses. So we see gaps in our success gaps in our STEM courses, especially in our Gateway STEM courses. And as you all know, if you start by failing one of the Gateway STEM courses, it means instead of taking 3 years, something that should normally be 2 years, but it means instead of taking 3 years, you end up taking 5 years. So those are some of the issues that we face. But thanks to our MESA program, we are making progress, and we are helping a good number of students.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is awesome statistics, and what great progress you're making through that program. So that's great to know. Yeah.
All right, maybe we can continue the conversation, and we will have more opportunities for interaction later on. Now I would like to move to invite Taryn to talk about the banking model.
Sure. So thanks, Ari. In 1968, Paulo Freire, the Brazilian educator and philosopher who developed the idea of critical pedagogy, he introduced what's known as the banking concept of education. And so this model equates teachers with bank clerks, who are essentially just depositing information into students. And the students are just expected to take in this information, store it, and then regurgitate it out for assignments and exams. In this model, the teacher holds all of the knowledge and holds all of the power, and the students are essentially seen as these empty shells just waiting to be filled with whatever the teacher tells them. So this banking model was and still is used in our society, and it's really a mirror of the oppressive society in which we're living in. And according to Freire, the more students work at storing the deposits entrusted to them, the less they develop the critical consciousness, which would result from their intervention in the world as transformers of that world. So Freire argued that instead of using the banking model, educators should strive for what's called problem-posing education, where students are actually the creators and sharers of their own knowledge, and where students and teachers are experiencing things and learning together. And so through this process, this problem-posing process, students are able to develop a critical consciousness where they're in charge of their own knowledge. And then that allows them to challenge the oppressive system that they live in and work towards freedom from education and from their oppression. Next slide. So oppression in education is still happening in our STEM courses. Like you all were just alluding to, a long history of exclusion of women and people of color has resulted in these fields still being dominated today by white men. And in 2017, Finkel said, the lack of equal participation in and access to STEM majors and careers is a social justice issue embedded in a historically constructed pattern of marginalization and exclusion. And as Ari said earlier, when we're not included in the voices and ideas of these underrepresented populations in our scientific developments, we're missing out on everything that they have to offer. But if we want to increase representation of these marginalized populations in STEM careers, we need these same folks to feel like they belong in STEM courses. So I'm going to pass it back to Ari to talk about some ideas on how we can do that.
Thank you so much, Taryn. So here, I just want to give you, like, if you, one of the big takeaways from this work is give students meaningful data sets, give students meaningful tasks, show social meaning and impact and meaningful impact of what they can use from your classes into their society. So CBL is the whole goal is to integrate, right, the needs of the community with our courses so that they can apply course content knowledge to these social issues. And what research has shown over and over and over, you can see from, well, we have the reference at the end, both from Sprinter et al. And the NSF, is that students that from unrepresented populations are more attracted to STEM when they see the applicability. When they are just not invited, go to STEM because you're gonna join the white corporate, right? If you see that you can use it to benefit your community, and you can bring it to your to make a social impact, then you are more likely to go into the field. And also, students develop this idea of social, they increase their social responsibility, right? They increase their awareness, and so hopefully I'm able to translate this idea, which in my mind I already I was preparing this speech, and now it's coming a little bit lagged, but hopefully with a couple of examples we are able to concretize the idea. All right, so community engagement focused in locally manifested, which are universal problems, as an effective strategy to realize the full inclusion and produce better science, right? So what I was trying to say here is that food insecurity, housing insecurity, sexual harassment, they are not just problems of Portland, right? There are problems that happen in Portland, happen in Texas, happen in California, happen in Mexico, happen in many different countries, right? In all these countries, we have these problems. So we are facing with global challenges, climate change, and we need the incorporation of all these communities to be able to minimize it. So making connection from the class to real world problems helps students to develop partnerships with local organizations, and they are able to understand the issue in context a lot better. So this reduces the power dynamics because, for example, with the civic engagement for social change, we did a project with sexual harassment, we did a project with housing insecure, and with food insecurity. And we are not experts, right? So I am a statistics instructor, and I am not an expert on sexual harassment. I'm not an expert on housing insecurity, but students learn with us about these social issues. So we invite people from these partners organizations to come into our classes, and so students have interaction with this partner organization, and they also see role models in the community, people that are actually making change in their communities, right? Another tip that so the important tips: give meaningful data, meaningful application, coordinate and find partner organizations. So connect with partner organizations, bring role models to your students, reduce power dynamics. Then Taryn is going to talk more about place learning with her examples, but this place learning, I really like it. Students get to go to the field, and it's amazing how, so besides our course content, they learn other strategies, right? So for example, they go into the Columbia River and they take water samples, and besides learning about toxicology and and environmental pollution. They also learn how to collect samples. They get to develop relationships. They get to know their community better, right? Then critical reflection and bringing together diversity of perspectives. So with critical reflection, what we are trying to ask students is to trying to reflect on where they're getting their information from, right? So critical of the authority of their information. So try to have relationship about where is information coming from, right? And trying to investigate who is not invited into a table, who is not invited into this conversation and should be included. Can we get information from different sources and how it relates in their communities and with them? All right, I'm gonna pass it back to Taryn. Oh, there we go.
All right. Thanks, Ari. So as we've hopefully shown you or started to show you, when we're using community-based learning, we're moving away from the banking model of education, and instead we're choosing that problem-posing education. The instructor is no longer the sage on the stage, and instead the instructor and students are learning together collaboratively and applying their lived experiences to solve real-world problems. In a 2021 paper by Dareth and Ware, in reference to a class community engagement problem, they said students and faculty take positions of allyship by approaching a community project out of equal collaboration rather than as preconceived experts ready to solve the community's problems. All right, so you already had a chance to watch the video showing the amazing project that our colleague Greg Gerstner used in his engineering class. And now Ari and I want to take some time to share a few more examples of STEM-based CBL projects that we've done at Portland Community College. So I use CBL in my environmental science classes as a way to, like Ari was saying, place-based learning, connect my students to the land and to the communities in which they live. And these CBL projects can provide students a chance to experience ideas from class discussion in a real world setting. And this ends up deepening their learning of these concepts. And I've noticed that as students learn more about their local community and the issues that are impacting it, they begin to feel a real sense of belonging within their community. And then that belonging ends up increasing their buy-in and engagement. And ultimately, they end up doing better and succeeding in the course because they're excited about what they're learning and they're invested in what we're doing. So the first example, first, before I give you examples, I want to note that CBL projects can look vastly different depending on the class and the particular term and who you're working with. So this first project was really a dream project for me. This was an interdisciplinary collaboration with something we called the PCC Ready Bag and Community Resilience Project. I collaborated with another CBL faculty coordinator, and we organized events at 2 different campuses on our college. And at the events, students learned about the Cascadia Subduction Zone. So if you don't know what a subduction zone is, it's an area where we have an oceanic tectonic plate is moving beneath a continental tectonic plate. And these are the areas where the world's largest earthquakes occur. So for example, the 2011 earthquake in Japan was on a very similar subduction zone to the one off our west coast. And based on tsunami records from the Oregon and Washington coasts, geologists think there's around a 1 in 3 chance that a very large earthquake will impact us here in the Pacific Northwest in the next 50 years. So we wanted to bring this awareness to students' attention. And in addition to that, we wanted to teach them about earthquake preparedness and community resilience, and we wanted them to be more prepared. So all the students that attended got to walk away with a free starter earthquake preparedness kit that we called a Ready Bag. So this project spanned multiple terms and included involvement by students in multiple departments, as well as resource centers on our campuses. And what we did is all the students from one of my classes, they planned these Ready Bags. So they decided what should go in them. They shopped for them, made a list. They created resources to go in them, like background information, an emergency plan, a checklist, and it's just really amazing what they did. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. It's also in the resource guide I shared with you all, but all the resources that they included are in there.
Can I interrupt you a little bit? Can I add one thing? So what I would like to point out is that what is this CBL, right? So Taryn not only teaching students about earthquakes and what is a subduction zone and plate tectonics, so they learn what is going to happen here in Portland, right? That we are expecting the big earthquake, and they also learn to about getting their back and resilience back. So they are not only learning the course content, but how do it's applied in their communities and what can they do about it. I just wanted to give the to Taryn about this project and what is it CBL.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah. It ended up being really great, and my students, you know, they did a fantastic job and they really loved it. We have a little story map about the project if you want to read that here. And there's several quotes from my students on their reflections. I'll just read one of them about this project, which says, "My overall experience was fantastic. I specifically enjoyed working with something that would directly impact my community. And when the day of the event came, I was excited to see students flood in and take the bags. This made the effort very worth it, knowing that something I contributed to had a positive impact on people. I would absolutely do it again or something similar, given the opportunity." All right, so the next example I'll give on the next slide, this came out of this recent collaboration that our college has put together between the Community-Based Learning Program and the Office of Civic Leadership Development. It's a new program called the Community Engaged Institute for Social Change. And so last year I participated as a faculty in the pilot program for that. And through this time, I developed a CBL project where my students had a chance to see the connections between food and culture. So our class partnered with the Filipino Bayanihan Center, which I'm going to call the FBC from now on because it's a big word, as well as a local farm called Kasama Farms. And they're both Filipinx-led organizations here in Portland. So our class started with a guest speaker coming from the FBC to talk to my students about the work they do, which includes offering a food pantry of culturally specific Filipino foods for the Portland community. And the food pantry has fresh produce that's grown by Kasama Farms. So first we had to learn a chance to learn about the FBC and Filipino culture. Then we went and spent a class out at Kasama Farm, seeing the practices they used, and we actually got to help them get our hands dirty, and we helped prep the field for rice cultivation. And then students get to choose. They got a chance to spend more time working at Kasama Farms, or they could work with the FBC food pantry. And so in this way, they had a chance to see the cycle of food and the community connections that existed there. And it was a really powerful experience, which I'm hoping to scaffold on later. So my favorite quote from these student reflections are, "It was great to learn with hands-on activities at Kasama Farm. We need more farmers focused on soil health and sustainable farming. Having exposure to farmers working to mitigate unsustainable practices in our food systems is incredibly valuable. The connection between Kasama and FBC was great to learn about. I appreciated finding out about issues that impact the Philippines and how it shows up in Portland. I learned about new crops cultivated at Kasama, which are culturally relevant for the Filipino community." All right, so those past two examples were really involved. They took a lot of planning and had a lot of dedicated course time. But I want to say that not all CBL projects need to be so intensive. And I do a lot of projects that can just fit into one class period or one lab period and still allow students to have this connection through their engagement. And if you're someone that has never done CBL before, this might be a really great entry point, especially if you're having hesitations and you're not sure how it would work. So one example of a one lab period project I've done is working with the Wetlands Conservancy. So we took students out, we geared them up in wetlands gear, and they got to look for amphibian egg masses in one of our local wetlands. And so students are getting to experience all the senses of the wetland. They learn about the importance of amphibians, and then the data that they collect is actually used to support wetland protection and restoration efforts. So one of my students said, "This was a really fun experience, my first time ever monitoring egg masses and wearing waders. I learned a lot from the team from the Wetlands Conservancy and felt very prepared in the field. I'm grateful to have a better understanding of these indicator species." All right, so after all of these CBL experiences, no matter what they are, how they're assessed is on a reflection that they submit. And so this is a really crucial piece of the CBL process, at least for us at our college, because it's how we as the instructors know what the students are taking away from our projects. So I've shared some questions that I typically might use on the slide here, like how has this project related to concepts we have discussed in class? What impact has your service had? How does culture, yours or others, play a role? How would you define community for your project? Has participating in your chosen project changed your role in the community? How? And how has your understanding of course material changed by participating? Has this project enhanced your overall class experience and understanding? So, in these questions, I'm asking students to think beyond just explaining what they did and asking them to connect these actions back to themselves, to the class, and to their community. And so in this way, I'm really able to assess their understanding of how our project connects to coursework without giving them a high stress assessment. So these reflection questions are allowing students to share what they do know instead of being tested on what they don't know, which is a huge boost for equity. So any students that have testing anxiety, poor recall, or other factors that might prevent them from doing well on tests can often really excel on a reflection assessment. And when students do well on an assignment, they feel like they belong in that classroom. So as a teacher in a STEM field, I know that many of my students come to my classes automatically afraid of science and automatically feeling like they don't belong there. And so when I can add in these assignments that they do really well on, they feel like they do belong there. And that just makes it work better for me and for them. And now I'm going to pass it along to Ari, and he's going to share an example from one of his statistics classes.
Thank you, Taryn. So what we are seeing here is that a CBL can take different forms, right? So it can be a small project, it can be a term project, or it can work over different terms depending on the type of classes that you are teaching. In the classes that I teach, I have applied CBL two different ways. The first way is that I ask students to list social issues of their interest. So they have food insecurity, housing insecurity, and we have a list of 15 different issues. Then what we try to do is to look for partner organizations. So we look for partner organizations and we ask them for data, and I connect the students to the librarians. At least librarians are incredible support for our students at PCC. They help them do critical reflection of their source of knowledge that they are getting. So they are not only investigating the problems from the mainstream, but they are also trying to investigate data from different sources and evaluate these different sources. So they learn to evaluate where they're getting their information from. And then they develop based on the data that they collected, then we try to use statistics to describe the data, to visualize it, or to apply testing to see if there is a difference of all. I think I'm gonna just go and mute everybody here. There we go. The other way that I have applied CBL is to I ask partner organizations to share data and if they have any data analysis question. So we have go with partners organizations and I have tell them I'm teaching this Stats 1 and Stats 2 class, and I have these students that will be very happy to help with any data needs that you have. And we have received a couple of surveys, we have analyzed surveys, we have disaggregate surveys in many different ways with a partner organization, which is called Brown Hope. They have specific questions about, they collected a lot of information and they wanted to know who were they serving. So with all the information that they collected, we were able to identify who were not serving, who were more likely to receive an award than others, and we help this partner organization understand. So these parents organizations, they do not have an statistician, they don't have a data analytics person with them, so they can use our class for that. And then this, the way that we incorporated this into a term project, and this term project has a clear rubric. And in this rubric, we have graded how do they incorporated the course content into this data set. And also here is where we incorporate the critical reflection questions as well, right? Like how did the reflection questions that Taryn was showing, how has this impact you, and how do you relate it to your own content? And some of the quotes that I have from my students are like, oh, at the beginning of the term, I was dragging the term project. Like I didn't want to do it, but then at the end, this is what I like the most. Or I have seen like, oh, now I'm going to change majors and see that data analytics is a very growing field, right? So so one thing that I have been showing them is that they belong, right? So I try to show different role models, and besides showing different role models, what are the data trends of the labor? So the labor data trends. So I show them that, look, if you just Google right now, what is where are the jobs going? What are if you want to be a data analytics, how many jobs there are? What skills do you need? How do you what courses do you need to be able to fill this labor market? And that has been really useful and productive. All right, so now we are moving time to brainstorm. So we in this time we just want to ask you to try to think about how could you incorporate CBL into your own courses and or your institutions. We have, and we so in this stage we just want you to reflect before you go into the breakout rooms.
I think we're gonna not do breakout groups, and we're a small enough group that I think we could just do one group, but let's still take 2 minutes to brainstorm.
Great idea, Taryn. So yeah, we are modifying the breakout rooms, but here the idea is to hopefully to inject you with some new worm or new cricket to say, oh, I can bring a social awareness, I can increase social responsibility into my classes, and show you that education can go beyond just course content, right? With education, they can develop other skills. And hopefully here is a brainstorm of how can you bring these ideas into your courses.
So I put the link to the Jamboard in the chat again. So the second page of the Jamboard is a great place to put anything you start thinking about this. And then we'll give you all a few minutes to think quietly, and then we'll have a small group conversation.
All right.
We want to pull the Jamboard up, you think?
Yeah. So now please let's go into breakout rooms again, and please fill in the second page. So we were in the first page in the Jamboard. Now we're gonna move into this second page.
I think we're gonna just not do the breakout groups, Ari, because I think there's only 5 folks. So we figured it would be easier to just talk in a group.
Just all of us. Okay, I like that. That's a great way to do it. So instead of a breakout room, all of us let's just share ideas on and brainstorm on how can you incorporate CBL into your courses. Like I am interested like Jesus, Keelan, Amy, Laura, Gilbert, what do you teach, and like what do you need to incorporate CBL? Are you interested in incorporating CBL? Do you see the benefit of doing CBL? Please open the mic. Yes, Gilbert.
Okay, so
Oh, Laura.
okay, so I teach calculus level physics, and they have to know how to solve problems before they can really apply, and it takes many years to get to that point. So also we have to follow very strict curriculum. So I don't see this working in that class, but I do see it working. I do a lot with like Upward Bound, which is a trio program with the high school students. I maybe could see that with the conceptual physics, talking about, like you mentioned, earthquakes and structures and so on. So there's a lot of creativity that can be done there. And definitely some of the micro internships that our school does would be a great fit. For example, right now I'm volunteering with a NASA program about building. High school students are going to design and build a rover wheel for the moon,
Cool.
which is cool, which is cool and great or whatever, but it would be neat if we could do something with the community, maybe a tractor wheel for the fields, right? You know what I'm saying? Because the moon doesn't really tie it to the community as maybe a tractor wheel, so maybe market it a different way, present it a different way. And there I see the roles being perfect with these programs.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I really like it. We a couple of years ago we had an instructor from welding, and she was saying like, "Oh, I do not see how we can bring CBL into welding," and I'm like, "Oh, wait!" And I think one really cool project that we have seen in CBL is these micro houses, students learning construction techniques, doing micro homes or small houses, and also these rain covers. Well, here in Portland, it rains all the time. Well, it feels like it rains all the time. And so they develop also these roofs for waiting for the bus, so that they don't get, while they are waiting for the bus, they don't get wet.
Yeah.
Gilbert, were you gonna share your how will you apply it in your course?
Yeah, thank you. I think the entire idea of a community-based learning, it's an interesting one that will attract many of the underrepresented students in STEM that we are trying to reach. Right. However, while it might be much easier implementing community-based learning in courses like environmental science or some health science course, like Laura just mentioned, in mathematics or physics, it's a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, because the students have to supposed to take many semesters of mathematics or physics before they can get to a position where they can actually apply that knowledge. Having said that, I think there's still basic things that students who've taken even a class in algebra can implement in the community. The issue there is the barriers like resources to support such projects. For example, I work in California. My family is still out in Virginia. Every fall, the teachers in my daughter's class will reach out to me, and I'll read to their classroom via Google Meet. But in Bakersfield, where I work, I've made so many attempts just to visit elementary school classrooms to read to kids, and just the paperwork and the procedure involved is it's limiting. So so there are also other challenges that even if you plan on engaging in some such community-based projects, you are going to encounter with people who are not just probably familiar with the rule of those type of projects. So, but again, I think the whole idea is interesting and one that should be promoted.
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead, Tara.
Oh, I was just gonna thank Gilbert and say, I think you're right that sometimes the logistics work out really smoothly and other times not so much. And especially the first time you're trying out a project with a partner, you know, sometimes there's a lot of hiccups along the way. And then when you do find a community partner that things work really smoothly with, it's really great to, you know, get to repeat that project sometimes multiple times because you've gotten it all figured out. Like, all right, I know how it's gonna work.
Yeah, and I do also agree that for some classes, the application of CBL is easier to see than in other classes. But for example, in classes in mathematics or physics that we are saying, the source of the data sets that we are asking our students to evaluate, or the type of examples that we are using as students to analyze, right? It will be really interesting to develop this sense of giving meaningful data, meaningful examples, not only for the easier example to apply course content, but also like how do they affect them, right? So explaining the source of the data, explaining where it comes from and what does it affect. You know, the US Census is a great source, but also from community partners data, and also from diverse examples of social issues. Anybody else that would like to share, like, what do they teach and how can they incorporate CBL into their courses?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I teach mostly, I teach math, but mostly stats. And you kind of telling me about the CBL for your stats class really kind of opened my mind, really. I really never thought of that. So I'm the one that left the yellow sticky right there. I would be interested in kind of doing that, you know, expanding projects, because as of now, they gather data, like they'll gather like GPAs or commute times.
Right.
But I think it would definitely be better for them to get something that's more relevant to them and that they're interested in. I don't really, and so when you were saying that, and you were saying with local organizations, I guess my question was, how did you sort of make those connections in the first place?
Thank you, Jesus, for your question. That's an awesome question because I do want to share out our awesome partner organizations. So our friend Hannah is not here. She's the coordinator for CBL, and she has been doing CBL for a while, and she has been developed these relationships over time, right? So through fairs, through events, through civic engagement events, she reaches out to civil organizations, right? And then faculty also promote this. So we have Give Pulse, which is a platform where these community partners engage. I don't know at your college what platforms they use, but in many colleges, they have a civic engagement group. And this civic engagement group maybe already have identified community partners. And then you can reach out to them and say, look, I have these statistics students that they would love to analyze your data. Do you have any data questions that these students can do to help you? And it's amazing because everybody has a survey that they want you to analyze, or everybody has some data analytics questions that they would like to help you solve. So so it becomes useful for the community partner and also for your students to learn how they can apply the content.
I also want to put in a plug too with at least with some of our CBL practitioners when they're first starting, sometimes it makes sense to partner within your college. So maybe you have like a sustainability office that you know, they have some data that they could have your students look at and present back to them. And so that's kind of like a low stakes way where you're not having to engage beyond and like, okay, let's try it with this, and then we can try it with someone else after. And so we've had good success that way.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Go ahead.
You know, yeah, and also you can ask students to search for partner organizations, such as I do in my stats too. I tell them like, go search. So you are interested in housing insecure. I had a student that she was interested in the homeless population in Portland. Like, what can she do to help them, right? And she went and started searching about who in my community is doing something about it. And just that process of trying to understand who is doing something about an issue that I care, it has been so productive. Students that after they took my class, they continue to volunteer in those organizations because they found them, and they learn about the issue and why is it important.
That sounds awesome. I'm glad that so I will kind of, I guess, look around my campus to see who has those partnerships, if anybody, as well as I do know we have a sustainability center and such. I'm glad to hear that because I'm a math person and I don't really like networking.
Right, I know.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot to think about.
Amy, Laura, Catherine, Keelan, what about you all?
I will go. I am not a teacher. Just off the bat, I am a coordinator for a science resource center here at Long Beach City College. So I saw the link out of all the breakout rooms, and I was just interested to learning more about what CBL is and just kind of get a feel of it. So I don't have any, I guess, input or experience to add to the conversation. In terms of looking at barriers that exist, I know that a lot of our students also have a full-time job, or they are nursing students that are doing 12-hour shifts. So I noticed a lot of our events, if it's kind of outside of the class time, they have a really hard time participating, whether it's like family, responsibility or job. I don't know if there's anything that we can do to have them participate outside of what they need to put time in for class.
Yeah.
I
Oh, sorry.
agree. I very much agree with Amy about asking the students to dedicate even more of their, perhaps limited time. But I do want to give a plug for community-based learning, which may be called service learning or experiential learning, depending on the institution. But I have seen it transform students' lives, and I've seen them change their major because of their experiences. And sometimes that doesn't happen actually in that term, but the experience itself was enough to get them more involved in volunteering in their community and pursuing other mentorships in their wider community.
Right, and I agree. We have students that juggle multiple responsibilities. They have jobs, they have kids, family members to take care of. They have other classes. They are already very busy, right? And for me, instead of giving, it has transformed my teaching methods. So instead of just me lecturing, exam, this has been a way of transforming and lowering my my sage on the stage and learning with my students, right? So students dedicate class time to do research and to learn with me about a social issue. So CBL can take different forms. So maybe we cannot ask them to go and volunteer our times, but dedicate class time to investigate a social issue and how they can participate. Awesome. giving options seems equitable. Yes, can you elaborate, Keelan? Keelan? Sorry if I
Yes,
mispronounced.
I was just thinking that, let me turn on my video, sorry. This is the time of day when I'm gonna probably disappear because my lighting really washes me out. But anyway, I think that when we think about community-based learning, one of the things that I think about in terms of equity is that some students can participate more easily than others, but I think there are different ways that different students can participate. And so figuring that out, I think as a community is a helpful thing, because some students might be able to do the legwork and some students may be able to do surveys or interviewing people on Zoom or, you know, other things that they might be able to do. So challenging them, but at the same time, providing them with options seems like it's a really equitable way to approach that.
Yeah, different forms of engagement, right? Yeah, one thing that to increase equity in STEM is to show that how what is that they can do it, right? That to show them role models and different models. I like I see here in the comments, could be in person or remote. Yeah, last when we were doing another presentation, Darren and I, we heard of these remote field trips. So students that could not go and learn about, that do not have the resources to travel somewhere to learn about it, this instructor was creating these remote field trips, which it was very interesting to know.
All right, so maybe we'll I think we have one more slide to share, and then we want to leave a few minutes for the folks, for Keelan to connect with you all. But we just wanted to invite you to connect with us if you have questions, want to brainstorm, collaborate remotely on things. Our emails are here, and they're also in that resource list that I shared out. If you are wanting more professional development around community-based learning, we really love Campus Compact, and they work with all sorts of higher ed institutions. They put on conferences and they have lots of great resources if you're thinking about diving into this. And then we at Portland Community College use something called GivePulse we can log and track student engagement hours, but we can also use this GivePulse to find community partners. And so if your college doesn't have an account with GivePulse, you can still get on GivePulse to look for community partners in your area that have posted events. So you could still use the platform to search for those partnerships, even without having your college pay for it. And I think that's it. Anything you want to wrap up with, Ari?
No, just to connect with us, and if you have, if in any way we can support you to develop CBL, send an email to Taryn and I, and we would love to know how will you apply CBL in your colleges and in your fields.